The second learning objective is to use the CVP analysis to compute break-even points. Cost volume profit analysis expresses the relationship among costs, volume, and profit or loss. This analysis can answer questions such as, how many products or services must the company sell to break even? What will profits be if sales double? How will changes in selling price, variable costs, or fixed costs affect profits? Assumptions made in using CVP include that managers can classify each cost as either variable or fixed. The only factor that affects total costs and change is change in volume, which increases variable and mixed costs. Fixed costs do not change. Most business conditions do not perfectly meet these assumptions. Consider that most businesses have some mixed cost, so managers regard CVP analysis as approximate and not exact. Virtually all businesses want to know their break-even point. Break-even point is the sales level at which operating income is zero. Total revenues equal total costs. Sales below the break-even point result in a loss. Sales above the break-even point provides a profit. There are several ways to figure the break-even point, including the income statement approach and the contribution margin approach. In the income statement approach, we start by expressing income in equation form and then break it down into its components. Sales revenue minus total costs equal operating income. Sales revenue minus variable costs minus fixed costs equals operating income. Sale price per unit times units sold minus variable cost per unit times units sold minus fixed cost is equal to operating income. Sales revenue equals the unit sale price, $200 per event in this case, multiplied by the number of units, events, sold. Variable costs equal variable cost per unit, $80 in this case, times the number of units, events sold. Greg's fixed cost total $12,000. At the break-even point, operating income is zero. We use this information to solve the income statement equation from the number of DJ events Greg's must sell to break even. Greg's Tunes must sell 100 events to break even. The break-even sales level in dollars is $20,000. 100 events times $200 per event. Contribution margin is a short method of computing the break-even point. The contribution margin is sales revenue minus variable costs or expenses. It is called the contribution margin because the excess of sales revenue over variable costs contributes to covering fixed costs and then to provide operating income. The contribution margin income statement shows costs by cost behavior, variable costs or fixed costs, and highlights the contribution margin. So, sales revenue minus variable costs equal contribution margin, minus fixed costs equals operating income. Now let's rearrange the income statement formula and use the contribution margin to develop a shortcut method for finding the number of products or services one must provide to break even. Dividing both sides of the equation by the contribution margin per unit yields the alternate equation. Fixed costs total $12,000. Operating income is zero at break even. The contribution margin per event is $120. That's $200 sale price minus the $80 variable costs. Why does this shortcut method work? Each event Griggs Tunes sells provides $120 of contribution margin to break even in 1 month. Griggs must generate enough contribution margin to cover $12,000 of monthly fixed costs. At the rate of $120 per event, Griggs must sell 100 events. 100, that's 12,000 divided by 120, to cover monthly fixed costs. You can see that the contribution margin approach just rearranges the income statement equation so the break-even point is the same under both methods. Companies can use the contribution margin ratio to compute their break-even point in terms of sales dollars. The contribution margin ratio is the ratio of contribution margin to sales revenue. The contribution margin ratio approach differs from the shortcut contribution margin approach in only one way. Here we use the contribution margin ratio rather than the dollar amount of the contribution margin. Why does the contribution margin ratio formula work? Each dollar of Griggs sales contributes 60 cents to fixed costs and profit. To break even, Griggs must generate enough contribution margin at the rate of 60% of sales to cover the $12,000 fixed costs. $12,000 divided by 60 cents equals $20,000. We have seen how companies use contribution margin to estimate break-even point in CVP analysis, but managers use the contribution margin for other purposes too, such as motivating the sales force. Salespeople who know the contribution margin of each product can generate more profit by emphasizing high-margin products over low-margin products. This is why many companies base sales commissions on the contribution margins produced by sales rather than on sales revenue alone. Short exercise 19-4 reviews how to compute the break-even point in sales units. Story Park competes with Splash World by providing a variety of rides. Story sells tickets at $50 per person as a one-day entrance fee. Variable costs are $10 per person, and fixed costs are $240,000 per month. Compute the number of tickets Story must sell to break even. Perform a numerical proof to show that your answer is correct. Compute the number of tickets Story must sell to break even. Perform a numerical proof to show that your answer is correct. Compute Story Park's contribution margin ratio. Carry your computation to 2 decimal places. Use the contribution margin ratio CVP formula to determine the sales revenue Story Park needs to break even.